linear equations with decimals. All right, so first thing that you see is a big, long equation. Don't let it freak you out, right? So we've got negative 10 equals negative 0.8x plus 1.8 times negative 4x plus 1 minus 7. All right, so we're going to come over here to our scratch pad and write this down. So negative 10 equals negative 0.8x plus 1.8 times negative 4x plus 1 and minus 7. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to simplify this a little bit. There's a little too much going on here. And I see, oh, I've got this negative 0.8x, then I've got this 1.8 times this negative 4x plus 1. So hopefully you see right here we have some distribution that we can do. And then I've got that minus 7 tagged on at the end. So I'm going to start with my distributive property. And that's going to be 1.8 times negative 4x and 1.8 times 1 minus 7, right? All right, so I've got negative 0.8x plus, let's see here, 1.8 times negative 4x. That gives me negative 7.2x, and you can do that in your calculator. And we've got 1.8 times 1, which we know we don't need to do that in our calculator because it's just 1.8. Anything times 1 is itself, minus 7. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to go through and combine my like terms. So first thing I did was distribute. Now I'm going to combine like terms. Okay, so let's see here. I've got a negative 0.8x, and I've got a negative 7.2x, and I've got this 1.8 and this minus 7. So it's really nice. I don't even have to use the commutative property of addition here because my like terms are already sort of next to each other, right? So let's see here. I've got negative 0.8 plus negative 7.2, and that gives me a really nice negative 8x. And then I've got 1.8 minus 7, which gives me a negative 5.2. All right, so I've combined my like terms. Now I just have a two-step equation. So I'm going to use SADMAP. And what I know about my inverse operations to isolate my variable or to get my x all by itself. So I see I have this negative 8 that's being multiplied, and I have this 5.2 or this negative 5.2 that's being added. So I want to get rid of the added or subtracted term first. So the opposite of negative 5.2 is plus 5.2. If I do it to one side of my equal sign, I must do it to both sides of my equal sign. All right, so let's see here. Negative 10 plus 5.2 equals negative 4.8. And then I've got negative 8x plus 0. So negative 8x plus 0, because that's negative 5.2 plus 5.2, leaves me with just negative 8x. All right, and then I want to get rid of that negative 8 by doing the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to both sides of my equal sign. So negative 4.8 divided by negative 8 leaves me with 0.6, right? Two negatives divide to make a positive. And negative 8 divided by negative 8 leaves me with positive 1x. Of course, my last step should always be to check my work. So negative 10 equals negative 0.8 times 0.6 plus 1.8 times negative 4 times 0.6 plus 1 minus 7. All right, and now here I would be following order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Right? So I'm following them in order to simplify. So negative 0.8 times 0.6 gives me negative 4.8. And let's see here. -4 times 0.6 gives me -2.4 plus 1 minus 7. Let's see here. So I've got -4.8 plus 1.8. Let's see here. -2.4 plus 1 would give me -1.4. And then now I'm going to multiply 1.8 times -1.4, and that gives me -2.52. (1.8) times -1.4. Okay. All right, and so then hopefully when I add this all up, -4.8 plus -2.52 minus 7. All right, so now I see something went wrong. So now I have to go back and figure out what went wrong and where. -0.8 times 0.6 is negative. Here's where I went wrong. This should be a 0.48, right? I did 4.8 instead of a -0.48. So now let's try that. So -0.48 plus -2.52, that gives me a -3. And -3 minus 7 is -10, and -10 is equal to -10 is a true statement. So I know, in fact, I do have the right answer of 0.6. Whew, I made a small mistake with my decimal in my check. So it's always good to be thinking critically about the answers that you are writing down. We can hop back over to Delta Math, type in our 0.6, hit enter, and it shows us, again, the same steps. It shows us distribute, combine like terms, add, divide, and get your final answer. And that wraps us up for linear equations with decimals.